Hello everyone. I just wanted to record a quick tutorial on how to properly rotate the gun mesh inside the VR project if you're implementing a two-handed crop system. Now, a quick disclaimer, this is not a tutorial about implementing the system itself. There are plenty of other tutorials on YouTube, and I assume you do have something created one way or another where you have like a leading motion controller and then a secondary motion controller that dictates the rotation of the gun. Now, this is a tutorial about how to properly rotate the gun, and let me first explain the issues we have with most of the current tutorials on YouTube. So this is the implementation you see in the majority of these tutorials, right? We have our primary motion controller that holds the handle of the gun. We have our secondary motion controller, which leads the aiming position. And this is how we basically rotate the mesh. So it would face and orient itself between these two controllers. You will also see in some tutorials that's done also has these two nodes, but I will explain a bit later why I don't have them. So the main point is we get the world locations of both of our controllers, and when we use find look at rotation to find the angle at which we need to rotate the mesh so it would face between two controllers, right? And then we would directly set the world rotation of our gun mesh. So in my case, this is an attached parent. We would use Y and Z rotations. And then we would also use the X rotation of our main controller, the one that is holding the handle, to rotate the gun around our wrist. But with this system, there are a lot of issues when it comes down to actually feeling of the gun rotation. And let me show you what I mean by that. So I've got a simple gun setup which has two grab controllers, or sorry, grab components, one on the handle and one right here. So I can grab the gun by the handle, like the usual, like the one that is provided with the default Unreal Engines template. And I can also grab the gun by its aiming point, and you already can see some weird stuff happening. So if I move the gun around, you can see that the rotation is going all wobbly, even though I am not moving my motion controller, that the one that is holding the handle. Uh, and yeah, if I try to re-grab it, you can see that the aiming rotation is going better. But as soon as I start rotating my right controller, you can see that uh, even though I am only giving the slight rotation adjustments, my gun is basically doing a whole 180-degree rotation, and things get even weirder when we try to combine all of them. Yeah, you can see we are facing a lot of issues with our gun rotation, which really bugged me for a long time. And the reason it bugged me because it is the most consistent logic that we see on other tutorials on how to orient the gun mesh and rotate the gun and stuff like that. There is one tutorial, a really good tutorial, which showcases how to rectify this issue without using find look at rotation, but they are using quaternary, which I know might scare some people away. So I came up with something else, and I'm not claiming that I invented the solution. No, it's just something I randomly thought and it worked. So basically, we'll be doing the same thing. I'll be getting my attach parent, which is my gun mesh. I'll be setting its world rotation, right? And this is a simple function that runs inside the tick of my grab component. It just checks if the primary grab component, the one on the handle, has been found. And if it is held, then I will do my rotations. So now we need to reconstruct the rotation. The core principle is the same. We still need to have a motion controller that is holding our primary grab component, and we also need a motion controller. Sorry, a motion controller that is holding the secondary grab point. We still need both of their world. Oh God, can I type? We still need to have both of their world locations. Now things are starting to get a bit different. We are gonna reconstruct the rotation using a matrix. And I know it might sound scary, but really, there's nothing to be scared about. We first things first gotta find the direction between these two controllers, and we're gonna use get unit direction, which finds the unit direction, so it's a vector with a length of 1 unit, which basically will be our forward axis. And to reconstruct the rotation, we are gonna use make rod from xz. So this direction will be our x-axis, our forward vector. Now we need to supply the z-axis. And the z-axis will be the one responsible for actually rotating our gun with the right controller around the wrist. And now we gotta make sure that we supply the right vector. And for that, we first need to understand how the controllers are oriented in the world. So I've got this simple picture of a HTC Vive controller, and I am using HTC Vive controller as a reference, but it works the same, like it oriented the same way with Oculus Touch controllers, and I assume the index controllers have the same orientation. I am not sure. I don't have index controllers lying around to test this out, but I assume they do. So you might think that default orientation for the controller in Unreal is like that, the way we're holding it. But actually, it is like that. So that means we have our axis aligned in a world space like that. So this is our x-axis of forward vector. It is aligned with the surface of our uh, grab contact area, whatever it's called. Then we have our up vector, our z-axis, that goes like this. And finally, our y vector, our right direction, it goes like this. So in order for us to make sure that our gun rotates the right way around, it needs to be rotating like this. When we turn our controller, we will be using the forward vector of our controller as the Z axis. So this is my primary control. And of course, you can do it with a secondary if you want to move your secondary uh, motion controller to control the roll of your gun, but I'll be doing it with the primary one. So I'll be getting its forward vector, and this will be my new z-axis. And that's it. This is our new rotation. Now, let's see how it works, and I'll explain a few things. Let me just grab my controllers. Now I can take the gun, and when I grab, you can see that I also can rotate it with just my left hand. I am not rotating my right controller. All the rotations are correct. When I try to rotate my right controller only, you can see that it's precisely following the movement and the rotation of it. And it's not giving us any weird results when we try to combine these rotations. So you can see I can rotate the gun like this, like this, like this, and it's not twitching and going all over the place, which is perfect. Exactly what we need for a gun rotation in VR project. Now, a few things that need to be considered. As I said, this is enough. If your gun mesh is aligned with the x-axis. So let me show you. I'm using a gun mesh which comes with a free pack from FAP, Epic's Marketplace, and they have a gun which you can see is facing the same way as the world x-axis is also facing. If you have a gun which is like this, this one is facing the y-axis or any other axis, you will need to do some stuff, do some more stuff. And that is exactly why we have these two nodes, combined rotators and the multiplication. So let's say I would be using this gun, which is again aligned with the y-axis. And one thing to consider, the default gun that comes with Unreal Engine templates is also aligned with the y-axis. So that's why most of these tutorials that show you the drop rotation with a default Unreal gun do this stuff. So after I reconstructed my rotation, I would also combine it with the rotation that is needed for me to, no, that's the wrong gun. That is needed for me to make the gun face the world forward axis, which is X. So you can see this one is aligned with the Y axis. So I need to rotate it 90 degrees on the Z axis counterclockwise for it to face this way, which is this rotation. You see minus 90 on the Z axis. And then you will also need to reroute our axis. So, for example, if we have a gun aligned on the x-axis, like the normal, we can just pass in the rotation as it is. If we had a gun that is aligned on the y-axis, we would pass the roll as the y, I think. Then we would need to multiply the pitch by -1 because otherwise the rotation will be inverted. So if you'll be lifting your secondary controller up, the gun will be going down. That's why we need to multiply it by -1. This will be going to the roll, I think. Don't remember really, sorry. And then the Z will be passed without any changes. Now, if you have a gun that is aligned, for example, on the Z axis, the gun points straight up, you'll need to change these values to make sure that your gun rotates facing the x-axis, world aligned. And then you'll also have to figure out which axis now becomes which axis. But again, I'm using a mesh that is world aligned with an x-axis, so I don't need to do any of these additional combinations. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Once again, let's see that it works. I'll be grab my table. I'll be grabbing my gun. I'll be grabbing my secondary point, and you can see that I'm quite freely can move my gun around. I can rotate it. So, for example, if I had like a rail for a scope, which is like a 45 degree angle, I would be able to aim with it and all of that stuff. And it gives us a pretty good gun rotation without going all haywire and creating a gimbal locks. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Hope this helps. If you have any other questions about the rotation logic or maybe some other stuff, leave them in the comments. I'll try to answer them in 4 to 5 business days. And also, if you want to see the modular grab system that I'm currently work, I might create a tutorial series on how to upgrade the default VR template to provide a better interactivity with the world and the character. But yeah, once again, this is it. Thank you for watching. Hope this helps and keep developing.